Well, welcome to this Earth Day edition. Happy Earth Day, everyone. I'm Renee Williams, and I'm a co-host here for From the Woods Today, and I'm an information specialist in the Department of Forestry and Natural Resources. And I'm
Hey,
here with
Renee.
my co-host, Billy.
Hey, Renee. I'm so glad to be here. It's so exciting. This is Earth Day. This is the fifth anniversary of Earth Day. Started way back in 1970, and believe it or not, I was actually alive then. So it's 50 years ago we had the very first Earth Day. So we're going to be celebrating today with some great video clips from some of our team. We also have a few 4-Hers from across Kentucky that are participating. So I'm really excited about today's show. So, again, 50 years ago, we started Earth Day, and it really started with a couple of folks. Former Senator Gaylord Nelson, who was in Wisconsin. He was a junior senator at the time, but he was really concerned about the environment, as were a lot of people at that time. If you remember what was going on in the 60s, or at least you read about what was going on in the 60s, there was a lot of concern about the environment and injustices. So they wanted to create this teach-in. So he ended up working with this activist, Mr. Dennis Hayes, and Dennis basically organized the first Earth Day, which was really started out as an environmental teach-in, and it was going to be held across campuses all across the United States. And in fact, more than 20 million people participated in that very first Earth Day. Since then, it's kind of gotten a lot bigger. In 1990, it went global, and it was being celebrated all over the world, which was really cool. We had over 200 million people participate in 141 countries. And then you look at today, we're expecting more than 1 billion people today are going to be participating in Earth Day from over 190 countries. So that's really exciting that we have a lot of people thinking about the environment right now and the earth and how important it is, Renee. So it's really exciting to be here on this first show that we have on Earth Day here from the woods today. So
Yeah, and I love the fact that our show is actually on Earth Day. So it's really exciting for us, especially with us being in forestry.
Yeah, no doubt. Speaking of forestry, I've got a great little thing I want to share with you all. This is an Earth Day poster. So the Kentucky Energy and Environment Cabinet came up with this poster, and they had a photo contest for their employees. And one thing I wanted to point out, these were the winners from different categories, but we have several folks that are with the Kentucky Division of Forestry that are some of the award winners. So this is just one way that the Kentucky Energy and Environment Cabinet is celebrating Earth Day, and we just wanted to share what they're doing with their stuff. So
yeah, and I recognize a lot of names on there, people we work with. So
yeah,
it's a really neat poster, to be honest. It has all different aspects of it.
it really does. So it's an exciting time. It's a beautiful day here in Kentucky, and we're just really happy to be here with you. So Renee, I think we can go ahead and get started with the video now.
All right, that would be great. So like I said, if you've ever wondered about how do I plant a tree, what do I supposed to do, we're going to give you some tips on how to plant a container tree and how to plant a Bareroot seedling.
Hi, I'm Megan Bueland with Forestry and Natural Resources Extension here at UK, and today we're going to be talking about planting a tree in your home landscape. There are a couple important considerations to keep in mind before you even go out and select a tree to put in your yard. One of the most important considerations is the site in which you're hoping to plant your tree. Go outside and observe the site at different points during the day from morning through evening and see what kind of light conditions this area receives. If this is an area that receives mostly sun or an area that is predominantly shaded throughout the day, this is important information to have before you select a species of tree, as different tree species have different light requirements. Some trees like full sun shining down on them throughout the day, while other tree species are very intolerant of these conditions and prefer more shade during the afternoon part of the day. So knowing what kind of light your site gets is an important consideration when purchasing a tree and deciding what species you might want to plant in your yard. Another important thing to keep in mind when you're looking at your site is what is located around the site in which you hope to plant this tree. If this is an area that's very close to a house, you will want to avoid purchasing a tree that is going to have a very large mature size that might someday conflict with the house with your neighbor's garage or with other structures that might be in the area. Also be mindful of overhead power lines, as these can cause problems with trees as they mature and reach greater heights. So keep that in mind. You may want to select a species of tree that has a more open or vase-shaped format, or that won't reach as large of a mature height to avoid conflicts with utility lines some point in the future. When going to your local garden center or other location to purchase a tree for your yard, you'll find that most trees come in one of two forms. They'll be either ball and burlap trees, or they'll be container grown trees like this little bur oak that we have here today. Ball and burlap trees are grown in the field to a certain size and then harvested and shipped to the nursery for your purchase, whereas container grown trees are exactly what they sound like. These little guys are grown in the container for the majority of their lives and shipped to the nursery in exactly that format for purchase to be planted in your yard. Now, both of these formats, ball and burlap and container, they both have pros and cons, but neither one is better than the other when it comes to the quality of tree to plant in your yard. There are just different things that you want to keep in mind when you are looking at these two different formats for selecting a tree. Before you start to do any digging in your yard, it's important to have all utility lines marked. In Kentucky, this means calling 811, which is your local call before you dig number in the state of Kentucky. Call this number and you'll speak with a representative who will take down a little bit of information about your location and what you're hoping to do. And they'll send local utility companies out to mark gas, electric, and water lines throughout your property to be sure that your planting location doesn't have any conflicts with your local utility companies. Once you've selected a site and purchased your new tree, it's time to bring it home and get planting. And there is actually a right way and a wrong way to dig a hole when it comes to planting trees, so we're going to talk a little bit about that for just a moment. When you're digging a hole for your new tree, you want this planting hole to be at a minimum 2 to 3 times as wide as either the container or root ball of the tree that you've purchased. And you want the depth of the hole to be only as deep as the container or the top of the root ball of your new tree. You don't want that hole to be a whole lot deeper than the tree that you've purchased. Planting trees too deep can lead to serious problems for your tree down the line that can lead to stress conditions, poor form, risks, and possibly even death for your tree if it's planted too deeply. So be very cautious of how deep that new planting hole is. A couple other things to watch out for are glazing. This isn't usually a problem when you're digging a planting hole yourself with shovels at home. This is more a problem that you run into using heavy equipment to dig holes to plant trees. So I wouldn't worry about that too much if you're doing this yourself with a shovel in your yard. The other thing to watch out for is clay pans. Here in Kentucky, we have a lot of clay in our soil, and a clay pan can lead to conditions of a lot of water sitting around the roots of your tree, possibly leading to stress and potentially death if enough water sits around the root of your tree for long enough. Alright, you're finally ready to put your new tree in the ground. Today we'll be talking about planting container grown trees. If you have a ball and burlap tree, please see the associated information to learn about how to properly prepare a ball and burlap tree for planting. So with your container grown tree, you want to carefully remove it from the pot that it came in. Be sure to support the tree at its base. Don't grab it near the top because you could break the tree. Hold it near the base and carefully remove it from the container. There are a couple of things you want to check before planting your new tree. Be sure to look around the base of the tree here at the trunk flare, for any potential girdling roots. This is a good time to snip any roots that might be circling this base of the tree so that they don't cause serious problems for your tree down the line. So go ahead and take a pair of pruning shears and snip any girdling roots now. The other thing you want to check is to see if your tree is pot bound. Sometimes container grown trees can have roots that circle around the pot inside the planting container. And this is a time when you want to carefully sever some of those roots to give the new roots room to spread out instead of continuing to grow in that circling pattern. Now thankfully this tree doesn't actually have any girdling roots, but if it did, we'd want to carefully go in and try to sever some of those girdling roots around the edge of the tree and loosen them up before we go ahead and plant this tree in its new home. And now we're ready to finally get planting. Congratulations, you've successfully planted a new tree in your yard. A couple things to keep in mind as your new tree gets established and starts growing. Take one last check to be sure that the base of your tree is properly planted, that the trunk flare is exposed, and that your tree has not been planted too deeply. This is your last chance to check on this before your tree starts establishing and you risk stressing it out by moving it in the future. So take one last look and make sure that the trunk flare is exposed and your tree hasn't been planted too deeply. And then take a look at your mulch. Mulch can be a really big help when you're planting trees, but it can also potentially hurt your trees if it is applied incorrectly. So take a look at your mulch ring. Be sure that it's a nice wide mulch ring that will help keep down weeds and retain moisture for your tree during the heat of the summer, while also being very certain that you don't have a mulch volcano going, that your mulch isn't piled up too high, especially, again, around the base of your tree here where it's very important that that trunk flare remain exposed. If these things seem to look good, then congratulations. You are ready to enjoy your new tree for years to come. Thanks for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.
We do have another video Dr. Ellen Crocker put together because, you know, not always are we planting like a container grown or a ball and burlap tree, but sometimes we want to plant just Bareroot seedlings. So if you'll give me a second, I'll pull up Ellen's video.
You're right. So there's different ways that trees can come in different varieties. And so you get, I guess for your options, you just have to see which one's the best one for you. It depends on where you're planting it and how you're going to be planting it, whether it's in your backyard or you're actually trying to create a forest on your own on your acres of woodlands. So it just all depends on what your priorities are and what you need to do.
Yeah, no doubt. So, you know, if you're working in a big landscape, you're probably going to be working with foresters and getting some other support as well. So, all right, Renee, I think I've got her.
All right. So let's go ahead and watch our next video, which is on Bareroot Seedlings with Dr. Ellen Crocker.
Bareroot seedlings are grown in nursery beds for several years, maybe 1 to 3, and then lifted or dug up, packaged without the soil attached, and refrigerated until they are shipped to you. There are a lot of advantages to using Bareroot seedlings. Because they don't have soil attached, they weigh less and are easier to ship, move around, and plant. Plus, they tend to be pretty inexpensive. But it's also important to make sure that Bareroot seedlings are stored and planted properly to get good survival. After you receive your seedlings, they should be planted as soon as possible to prevent the roots from drying out. Keep in mind that these Bareroot seedlings don't have soil around them, so those roots are really exposed, and even a little bit of drying can be a big problem. So plant these as soon as possible. And one tip would be when you're ready to plant them, put them in a bucket of water, and you can carry that around with you as you're planting to keep them hydrated throughout the day. These photos here are of a planting event in Whitley County with some high school students that Kentucky Division of Forestry and our Forestry Extension group helped with last year. And here you can see all the students surrounding buckets filled with seedlings, and then they pick those up and take them with them as they plant. So this was a great time, and I think is a really good example of how Bareroot seedlings can go a long way and be really beneficial in those kinds of large plantings. So there are a couple different ways that you can plant bare root seedlings. As with other types of tree seedlings, you can dig a hole and plant the bare root seedling in it. Just dig a hole large enough to accommodate the entire root system. And when you place the roots in the hole, spread them out as much as possible and backfill with soil to that root flare. Another option, which is really nice, especially if you're planting a large number of trees, would be to use a planting bar to cut a deep, narrow V-shaped opening in the soil. And then you can place the seedlings' roots into that, push the soil firmly back around the roots with your foot. So in this photo here, you can see that orange thing is a planting bar, and here's kind of an illustration of how you might do that. You can find some great resources for this online. But either way, whatever you're doing, you really want to make sure that the seedlings are planted so that their roots can spread out and have a lot of space. If you're digging a hole, make sure that it's large enough and that there's some room to grow into. If you're using a planting bar, don't try to squeeze a seedling into the smallest possible space. Make sure that those roots are spread out and have some room to grow, and really try to avoid some problems like one common one would be, you put the seedling in a hole that's a little too short, so the roots start circling back upwards into this J shape. That can lead to problems down the road with kind of roots that are circling or don't move out like they should. Other common problems, planting too deep. So make sure that the root flare is right in line with the soil, as you can see in this picture here. So depending on where you're planting these trees, another thing to consider would be preventing competition from other plants. So you might need to mulch or mow regularly or add some landscaping fabric like you can see in this picture, which was from a Reforest the Bluegrass event, a large tree planting in Lexington a few years back. Or you might need to think about wildlife and potential wildlife damage. The Kentucky Division of Forestry's nursery offers a wide diversity of native trees as bare root seedlings that are a great choice for larger tree plantings. Make sure to order in the fall.
There was on 2 different types of tree plantings that you could possibly do. And if you want to get some of those container trees or bald and burlap trees, you can buy those probably at your local nursery. You would just need to check with them. I know a lot of nurseries around here are having where you can call them and pick things up on a one-on-one basis. It just depends on, I guess, where you live. So if anybody has any questions, let's go ahead and tell people that you can type those in the chat pod. If you have anything for Megan, she's online with us. Dr. Ellen Crocker is also online with us. They can answer questions. If you do have questions about the Kentucky Division of Forestry, 2 guys that now work in our shop, Eric Gracie and Darren Morris, are also on, and they can answer any questions that you might have about with the Kentucky Division of Forestry and tree seedlings. So that's, a couple of things that you could do.
Renee, as we're waiting for some questions to come in, and hopefully some folks have some tree planting related questions. If you are a woodland owner and you're thinking about planting more than just 1 or 2 trees, and you're looking at reforesting an area, perhaps an old field or an area that you don't really have the trees you're looking for, and you want to kind of change the species composition, I really encourage you all to work with a professional forester. A forester can come out and make some recommendations of what trees might be appropriate. They'll match them up with your objectives and what works for you and your land, and then they can help actually with some of the tree planting actions. So please, work with a local forester. If you're doing more than just a few trees, I would strongly encourage that. If you're going to spend the time and effort to plant trees, you want them to be successful for the long haul.
Yeah, definitely. We do have a question though. It says, how long does it take to make your own seedlings from your current tree branches? That's an interesting question. I'm not sure about that. Billy, do you know? Or Ellen or Megan, could you go ahead and get on and maybe answer that question?
I would say as they're getting on, one of the more common ways we kind of root trees from branches like that would be like with willows. Willows are really good at being able to take kind of branch cuttings and stuff like that and get to root those in soils. I think some trees are a little better at doing that than others. Ellen, I don't know a lot about kind of that type of reproduction of trees. I don't know if you've got a little more depth of that, or if anybody else on our team.
Well, another way that you could be doing that would be grafting trees. So then you're taking, the scion material, the branch material of a tree, that new growth, and putting it onto a rootstock of an older tree. People do that for a lot of different reasons. Let's say you want a fruit tree that has particular characteristics. Then you'd be doing that grafting process, which is a little different from how most of the Bareroot seedlings, let's say at Kentucky Division of Forestry's nursery, are grown. A lot of those are grown from seed for several years, and then they're pulled up. So you're not actually taking that branch material. I think that we're going to have a show on grafting in just a few weeks to kind of walk you through the process of that. How do you graft trees, and what are some best practices there, at least with our hardwood trees, because I think a lot of us are more familiar with grafting in the context of apples or some other fruit trees. So more to come on that soon.
Yeah. We do have another question about, could you talk about native trees, especially for northern Kentucky area?
I would say quickly that, we're so blessed here in Kentucky to have such a wide diversity of native trees. Well over 100 native trees are out there to choose from. And I'd really like the idea of people considering choosing native trees. I think when we talk about which trees are appropriate for a site, I think Megan did a really good job of talking about getting the right tree in the right site. You want to make sure that tree is going to be able to fill that space, and it's going to kind of give you the characteristics you want. So when you're talking about native trees, you really want to think about what you want out of that tree, whether it be shade or something that's fast growing, or if you're looking for pretty flowers, and how much room you have available. So Maureen, I see your question there. If you have any other thoughts about certain trees, and we'd be happy to try to entertain those. But again, if you're selecting a tree, you want to match that tree to the site and what you're trying to get out of that tree.
You touched on balled and burlapped, but is there any difference between the container or the balled and burlap that you were talking about as far as planting goes?
There are some very significant differences between container grown and ball and burlap trees when it comes to planting, and that mostly has to do with the way in which you prepare those trees and get them ready to plant. We talked about container grown trees, and with those it's primarily a matter of checking that trunk flare to be sure there are no girdling roots and loosening up any potential pot bound roots that could be present. With ball and burlap trees, it's a little bit different. Ball and burlap trees are dug and wrapped in burlap before they're sent to the nursery. And when you bring those balled and burlap trees home, there are a couple of mistakes that people often make in planting those that can kill your tree or lead to stress down the line. So with ball and burlap trees, be sure to remove any twine, any rope or other ties that may be around that root flare of the tree, around that trunk flare. There's often ropes that are used to hold the burlap in place, but if you leave those ropes on your tree when you plant it, they can girdle your tree and potentially kill it in the future. So be sure to remove any ties, any ropes there. And with the burlap on top of the tree, you have a couple options. Some people will cut the burlap just off of the top part of the root ball itself. You leave all the burlap on the sides and on the bottom of the root ball, but you can remove the burlap at the top if you wish. It's not necessary though, but at the very least, take that burlap and kind of peel it back from the top of the root ball so that that top of the soil and the root ball is exposed on your balled and burlap trees. And those are the two most important things when it comes to ball and burlap and how they differ from container grown trees in planting.
I know you showed it a little bit, but girdling and what that means?
Sure. Girdling roots are roots that circle around either the trunk flare of the tree or inside a planting container. And what happens is essentially the tree becomes a little bit confused as to what's going on in this environment that it's growing in, and it will send roots out because it thinks that it needs to put these roots in this space. It's confused because it's not in its normal habitat in the ground. So it'll send out these roots, and they'll start growing in patterns that aren't the way that they should normally grow in the soil. What can happen with those roots then is if they continue to grow, usually around the trunk flare of the tree is the most dangerous spot for those girdling roots. they can crush the vascular system of the tree and cause significant dieback or possibly death to a tree down the line if the girdling roots are bad enough. The vascular system of the tree is, imagine like the blood vessels that are running through your body. They carry nutrients around, they carry your blood throughout your body. The vascular system of a tree is just like that. It moves water and nutrients back and forth through a tree. So if that vascular system is constricted by girdling roots or something else, it can really affect the ability of your tree to be healthy and move water and nutrients where they need to go.
That makes a whole lot of sense by doing that. Thank you, Megan. We appreciate that. And Dr. Crocker, I was noticing in your video, you were talking about that J shape. And I was wondering, how do you keep that when you actually are putting that tree in the ground? How do you keep the roots from doing that J shape so that you know you're actually planting them correctly?
Well, first off, I'd say that a lot of the events where we tend to do these big Bareroot seedling plantings, part of that is that you want to get as many people involved as possible. And that's part of the fun of it. I think a lot of us can remember planting a tree at something like that when we were a kid, or maybe even last year at a big reforest event. And it's really fun. But then one of the challenges is you've got a lot of people there who maybe planting technique is not something they've got a lot of experience with. So actually one of the photos I showed was just me and another person going through and trying to fix all the seedlings that were planted either in too shallow of a hole. And sometimes you can't see that after it's already happened. It's hard to tell underground if someone, the hole wasn't quite deep enough and they folded the root system back up. But sometimes you can see just roots hanging out above ground. Other times, trees planted way too deep and kind of opening those holes back up, lifting them a little bit higher and trying to reclose those. So I think that it's just really important to think about the size of that root mass. Just because you get a whole batch of those seedlings doesn't mean they're all going to be exactly the same. So making sure that you're kind of taking that into consideration. There are lots of great resources online, and anyone else feel free to chime in on some approaches to that. But even, in a lot of those big planting events, you're kind of expecting that you're going to have some mortality of those trees. Not all of them are going to make it, because if all of them did make it, you'd have this super dense stand of trees. But you still want to have as good survival as you possibly can.
And we have some fact sheets on tree planting as well, so that we can post those links once we post the recording of today's show. Well, thank you both for coming on. We greatly appreciate it. And if there's any questions later on, we'll pop you back in and ask those. But right now, I think we're going to move on. There is another event that, well, I guess event you could call it, happening this week.
Arbor Day.
Yes.
Arbor Day, yes. So let's talk about that. We have Lori Thomas on here to tell us a little bit about Arbor Day.
All right, so Arbor Day is this Friday. National Arbor Day is this Friday, the 24th. It's always celebrated nationally the last Friday in April. Now, we'll let you know that that date varies state by state. So Kentucky actually celebrates, ours is going to be on Saturday, the 25th of April, and those dates vary depending on what's the best planting time for that state. So yes, Arbor Day, National Arbor Day is this Friday, and wow, an Earth Day on this Wednesday. What a great week for Mother Earth. But Arbor Day this is the 148th year of celebrating National Arbor Day. It began in Nebraska and we've continued it since I think it was 1872, and it's a really great time to get community together to learn about trees, the importance of planting trees and reforestation efforts. And normally on Arbor Day, that's what we do. We participate in these big tree plantings, reforestation efforts, like here in Fayette County, we do reforest the bluegrass every year. But this year, given our circumstances with COVID-19 and social distancing, we're not able to participate in some of those big events. But up on the Arbor Day, National Arbor Day site, they've got a whole list of suggestions of other ways of celebrating Arbor Day. But I have joining us in a short video a coworker, Ashley Osborn, who's an extension specialist in the state 4-H office, who's going to share an alternative way of celebrating Arbor Day. So if Billy would go ahead and share the video that Ashley and her daughter Grayson have put together.
Hi, my name is Ashley Osborn. I'm a 4-H Extension Specialist at the University of Kentucky in the College of Agriculture, Food, and Environment. I'm here with my daughter Grayson. We want to tell you what the Arbor Day Foundation is doing to celebrate the 148th anniversary of Arbor Day. So the Arbor Day Foundation is encouraging families to go on their social media accounts, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and post a picture of your favorite tree using the hashtag Arbor Day at Home. And for each social media post with that hashtag, they will plant one tree, up to 50,000 trees. So Grayson and I went online and we posted a picture on Facebook of Grayson and one of her favorite trees. Grayson, can you tell us a little bit about why that tree is your favorite?
That tree's my favorite is because I get to just sit down, lay down, relax, read a book, and unwind.
So that tree's at Bernheim Forest, and I know Grayson has several favorite trees in and around our backyard as well. So we encourage you to pick out a favorite tree while using social distancing guidelines and post a picture of that tree on your social media account using the hashtag Arbor Day at Home.
I think anybody can come up with a favorite tree and do that. If we can get 50,000 trees planted, that would be amazing.
Yeah, let's get them all planted from Kentucky. So,
Exactly.
to get out there and take that picture and post it on your social media accounts. It's a great opportunity for you to get out with your family and see some beautiful trees that you think a lot about and help get some more trees planted here in the United States. So I hope everybody will take advantage of that opportunity and get some posts out there for us, Renee.
Yes, definitely. That's always, because I think everybody, whether it was just you growing up or even now, you have a favorite tree that you can walk around and go, yep, I get peace. I love that tree. And that's how, you could take a picture of it, tag them, and they'll plant a tree for you. So what better way to participate?
Well, it's a great segue then into our next video, the Tree of the Week. We have Laurie Thomas going to be talking about the Tree of the Week, which this week is sassafras. So I'll go ahead and pull up her video, Renee.
Hi, I'm Laurie Thomas with the University of Kentucky Department of Forestry and Natural Resources, and I'm here with the Tree of the Week, the sassafras. The sassafras is a widely distributed species known for its aromatic nature and variably shaped leaves. It's native to the eastern United States and it's common here in Kentucky, and it's one of the first trees to grow in abandoned fields. It's what we call a pioneer species, and it's there with the help of visiting birds that love to eat the tree's fruit. It's a small to medium-sized tree that grows up to 60 feet tall. It commonly root suckers and forms thickets or groups of trees like you can see here. Sassafras is an early bloomer and it's flowering right now, and it flowers before the leaves come out, much like the redbud. This species has yellow male and female flowers on separate trees. It's dioecious, meaning two houses, like the Kentucky coffee tree. The leaves, which are just starting to emerge, are deciduous and alternately arranged on the twig, as you can see in the yellow circle. They are variably shaped. They can be entire with no lobing. They can have two lobes like a mitten, or they can even have three. They are very aromatic when crushed, much like the twigs when you scratch them. In the fall, the leaves turn a brilliant red and look beautiful in the landscape. It's a great addition to any landscape. The fruit is a bluish drupe that ripens in late summer. Now, some parts of this tree are edible for humans, but the fruit is not. However, the fruit is eaten by a variety of wildlife. Lots of different birds, like the gray catbird you can see in the photo here, wild turkey, bobwhite, as well as black bear. The leaves and twigs are eaten by white-tailed deer, and the bark is eaten by rabbits. Overall, a pretty tasty tree. Sassafras is also an important tree for our butterflies. It is a host plant for both the spicebush swallowtail and the eastern tiger swallowtail butterflies. So if you want to attract butterflies to your landscape, think about adding the sassafras. The wood is lightweight and easily worked, and it's really durable. It's often used for small woodworking projects like this bowl you see here, which is quite attractive. It's also used in the millwork industry and for paneling, as well as things like posts and rails and even cabinetry. Sassafras root was one of the earliest New World exports. It was used to perfume soaps and make tea. However, today, large doses of sassafras extract are not recommended since it contains a chemical called safrole, which may cause liver damage. Sassafras extracts which do not contain safrole are still used in commercial teas and root beer. That Creole spice filet includes dried sassafras leaves that are ground into a very fine powder. It's what gives gumbo its unique consistency and very tasty flavor. The name sassafras was derived from the Spanish word salsafras, which refers to the tree's alleged medicinal value. The species name, albidum, refers to the light or whitish color of the undersides of the leaves. The national champion sassafras is here in Owensboro, Kentucky. It is 61 feet tall with a 50-foot crown spread and 283 inches in circumference, a pretty big tree to have in your front yard. If you want to learn more about national champion trees, check out americanforest.org/big trees. And if you want to learn about our state champion trees, check out the Kentucky Division of Forestry State Champion Tree List. Sassafras grows best in full sun or light shade in slightly acidic, well-drained soils. It's an overall beautiful tree for all seasons, spring, summer, fall. So hopefully you can get out in your neighborhood or park or your woodland and enjoy seeing sassafras this spring and summer and fall.
Well, it sounds like sassafras still has a lot of uses, and it's pretty beautiful throughout the entire year, depending on what season we're in.
It really does have a lot to offer. There's no doubt about that, Renee. Thinking about trees and some of the other things that we really enjoy about trees, there's this other thing that's going on right now, and Laurie's going to talk about that. It's about adopting a tree.
Right. So I wanted to share with everyone a program. It's a new challenge coming out of our 4-H. And I have today with us Danielle Hagler, who is a 4-H agent in Nelson County, and Ashley Osborn, who is an extension specialist in the state 4-H office, who are going to share with us some information about this new 4-H challenge called Adopt a Tree. So I'll let Ashley and Danielle take it away.
All right, thanks for having me online. I want to share with you about a fun opportunity that both the Kentucky 4-H program and Department of Forestry and Natural Resources are partnering on. It's the Tree Challenge. So we are encouraging families to go in their backyard or in their neighborhood and choose a favorite tree to adopt. And I'm going to let Danielle talk a little bit about the Urban Forest Initiative's Adopt a Tree program, their website, where you can go online. It's very simple to adopt a tree. And then once Danielle is finished, I'll come back on and talk a little bit about a challenge we have specific for our 4-H members. So I see Danielle.
I am one of the Nelson County Cooperative Extension Agents for 4-H Youth Development. I'm super excited about this initiative, not only because I have a strong passion for forestry, but also because I think this initiative really helps us learn about the benefits that trees give us. Now, with Arbor Day, you know, when you guys were talking about that, it made me think of the tree I grew up hiding in and climbing under, and the tree I got married under. So a lot of times we have strong connections to trees. But this Adopt a Tree Challenge just requires you to go out in your backyard. And it started out with the Urban Forest Initiative to kind of look at how much water was diverted, stormwater, in urban areas. And they had a 1 million gallon challenge where they wanted to identify in Lexington and Fayette County trees that helped divert over 1 million gallons and to connect people to those trees. They met their challenge, and now this is open to the state. Anyone can adopt a tree. So you go to the Urban Forest Initiative. You can just search ufi.ca.uky.edu, or if you just do a general search in your browser, just search uky.edu adopt a tree. And it's very easy. It's very mobile friendly. So you can do it on your phone. When you get to that site, it'll tell you all that you need to know. You only need a tape measure, a camera, and the ability to go online. Once you get there, you go to the Adopt a Tree web form, And on that web form, you'll have the opportunity to tell them a little bit about your tree. Tell them who you are, an email that they can contact you at, why you chose that tree. Is it something that's important to you because it's in your backyard? Is it something that's important to you because of the benefits it provides your community? It's going to ask for the circumference of the tree. So that tape measure is going to be helpful. For the tree that I picked, I actually probably needed a neighbor to help me out or a friend. Mine was 84 inches in circumference. So they do want that measurement in inches. You'll drop that information in. They'll ask if you know the species of the tree. And if you do, that's great. If not, it's okay. It's not a required field. So mine was a pin oak, and it lists both the botanical name and the common name, so you can look that up. And then it tells you some of the benefits that the tree gives you. So the tree that I picked was in my yard. It was a pin oak, 84 inches in diameter. And this form actually tells me everything that I need to know about the benefits of my tree. It intercepts 5,894 gallons of stormwater. It reduces carbon by 774 pounds and conserves 137 kilowatt hours of energy. The last thing that you need to do is kind of put where your tree is. You can be very specific with your address, or you can be more vague with your town or your community. And then you upload a picture. So similar to like Grayson and Ashley's picture for Arbor Day, you upload your favorite picture. And it's all uploaded so that everybody can kind of see the trees that are adopted in the area. So I challenge you to adopt a tree. And if you're a 4-H family, I'll let Ashley tell you a little bit more about the next step in that process.
Great, thank you, Danielle. So if you adopt the tree and you have a 4-H member in your family, then we are encouraging that 4-H member to either draw a picture of the tree or a painting or write a poem with the tree as inspiration. And then we are having a competition. So we're asking our 4-H members to submit those entries, whether it be a poem, a picture that they've drawn, or a painting. Submit those to me, and we'll put my email address in the chat box. And you can submit those to me by May 1st. That's the deadline. And we're going to choose one winning entry to receive a prize. And so we just really want to encourage our 4-H members and their families to get outdoors and really choose a tree that's meaningful to you. And we'd love to see those pictures and read those poems. If a 4-H member does a drawing or paints a picture, then you can just take a picture of that with your phone and submit that picture to me on email. If it's a poem, you can feel free to just send me that file or type that right into email and send that to me. And then we are going to just, I know, enjoy reading those and seeing all of those pictures. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to your county 4-H agent. And I know that I think Billy's going to share with us about a 4-H member who has already submitted a poem. So.
Yeah, we've got a great video coming up, but Ashley, before I get to that video, I wanted to ask you, some of our viewers may not be as familiar with 4-H and what you all do and how important your all's role is here in the state of Kentucky and really across the nation. So could you just tell our viewers a little bit about 4-H?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So the Kentucky 4-H Youth Development Program, we are part of the University of Kentucky Cooperative Extension Service. Each county extension office in Kentucky has an agent that has 4-H responsibilities. In 4-H, our mission really is to provide educational opportunities for youth to develop life skills so that they can grow into contributing members of society. And so we offer educational programs in 7 core areas, and those core areas include agriculture, natural resources, science, engineering and technology, health, family and consumer sciences, and leadership. And so, in our main audience are youth ages 9 through 18 years old, but some of our counties do offer programs for younger members, our Clover Buds, who are 5 to 8 years old. So I encourage you to reach out to your county extension office, contact your 4-H agent to see the type of programs and type of opportunities they have for youth in your community. So that's a little bit about 4-H, and we have lots of great programs.
and I'm excited to hear the 4-H members' poem because I know it's really great.
Yeah. So again, Ashley, thank you. And thanks to all the 4-H staff out there. You all do a great deal for our youth, and you're really building our future leaders, and you're making them well educated and prepared to take leadership roles. So thank you all for all that you all do for our youth here in the state.
Thank you all.
All right. So here is Lillian Westerfield's poem, Christian County 4-H member.
The Woodland Beach by Lily Westerfield. Far beyond the edge of the woods in a patch of young trees, round the curve and cross the stream, then follow the whispers in the breeze. A wise old beech stands, strong and fierce and tall. Her smooth ancient bark, the mysterious carving in the side, gives the wild a sweet, friendly call. The way her limbs stretch freely, gracefully, lovingly towards the sky. Long and limber they are, how I wish to watch her for hours till the bright day turns to a calm nigh. This being's well-earned pride, rescued from the murderous blight, shows truly a lesson to all, that genuine beauty and wisdom comes from never giving up the fight.
All right, Lillian, thank you so much for sharing that and allowing us to share it with the viewers here. And you're going to live forever on YouTube with that as well, Lillian. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking that effort.
Yes, we thank you so much. And we thank everybody today. I know our show's been a little longer than normal, but it is Earth Day, and you know, that's kind of our thing. So with trees and that kind of thing. So we appreciate all of you being a part of our, being with us today, and everyone who helped us with the show and doing videos and poem readings and just coming in. We thank all of you.
Yeah, no doubt, Renee. We couldn't do it without our viewers. And again, we're just trying to connect with those that are interested in woodlands and wildlife here in Kentucky. And, you know, the whole UK Forestry Natural Resources Extension team is behind this effort, and we want to be supportive wherever we can. You know, and I will mention again, Renee, that we have these shows that are recorded, and you've placed them on our website, fromthewoodstoday.com. And I will tell you, if you had any problems with some of the videos, maybe not playing well for you, make sure you check out those recordings because Renee's, through the magic of video editing, has been able to get in there and drop in the actual recording, so they may play a little bit better on the YouTube than they will as on the live Zoom meeting. So, but again, thank you, Renee, for what you do and the whole team. It's great, and happy 50th Earth Day.
Exactly. Happy 50th Earth Day, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, we'll see you next week, Wednesday at 11.